So I recently just turned 35. So what are my financial goals going forward? So when it comes to money, I typically do not have things like New Year's resolutions. I don't really go over any finances around my birthday. So this is the first year in a long time where I'm actually sitting down and going, okay, at this point in my life, what are my financial goals for the next several years? And before I get into the money stuff, I do want to address just the emotional aspect of this because how we handle our money and how we spend it and what it is that we're doing, what our goals are, it's all very much tied to our emotional state. So, for example, I've been 35 for almost a month now, and I meant to make this video before I turned 35. And you know what? I just didn't feel like it. I didn't want to. I have had so many people tell me that dirty 30 is when you start to feel different. You feel older, you notice these negative changes in your body, you notice you can't keep up, things you can't quite do, as well as you used to, and also mentally, you just, you start feeling more depressed, things of that nature. I did not experience that at all when I was 30. And I think part of it was just I was expecting this really just negative reaction because so many people told me that that was their experience. I did not experience that when I turned 30. I definitely feel that I experienced that when I turned 35. Um, I think for one thing, when I was 30, and a lot of this is just my own fault, poor self maintenance. But when I was 30, I still kind of looked to a degree that I was a few years younger. I'd always looked a few years younger. And now I'm at a point where I definitely look my age. I definitely look like a 35-year-old aging woman. Now, looks are not the most important thing to me, but it's just, it's still something I notice. It's still something I think about. But I think the biggest things that I've been struggling with, especially when it comes to sitting down and going over these financial goals, is feeling stuck, feeling like I'm just not where I want to be in life at this point. Because I gotta tell you, this is not the life that I envisioned for myself when I was 35. Um, I'm embarrassed that my life is not better. I'm embarrassed that I have not accomplished more at 35, that I've not done more at 35, that I'm not living a better life at 35. And some of it is kind of like a victimhood, woe is me type of thing, but most of it is really like, what about my own choices? A lot of things that happen in life are things that are out of our control, including things that hurt us financially. But it's also kind of looking back and going, that decision should have been way different. I definitely should have made a different choice in that situation. And just all these moments that I haven't thought about in years have just come flooding back. And it's just this constant sense of beating myself up. I'll wrap up this portion in a minute, I promise. I'm getting to the finish line. But lastly, I think there's also just the sense of mortality. You don't know how much time you have left. And for all the things that I value that I haven't accomplished at this point, like I might not have time. You can set goals all you want to. You don't know how much time you have left. And I find that in that thinking, I also feel a bit of guilt. So how many people have not made it to 35 and wish that they did? I think it's okay to not feel positive about turning 35 or 40 or whatever, but at the same time, I don't know. It's like I'm just in this funk that I can't quite get out of. So it's like I don't want to think about being 35. But now that that is all out of the way, I am 35 whether I like it or not. And I do have some pretty big financial goals. I kind of want to just talk off the top of my head in this video. I do have my goals planner from Erin Condren. There are a couple Erin Condren products that I love. I probably will not be buying any planner products this year or next year, so I'm happy that I have what I have. What I love about the goals planner, I just love the way that it breaks it down because so many goals planners or goal project books or whatever, they kind of just give you space to like write down the goal and write down your why, etc., etc. But this one gives you space to actually list out step by step by step, action step after action step after action step. Why did I struggle with that so much? But anyways, I love that I can go in and put, okay, this is step 1, this is step 2, this is step 3, this is step 4. There's also these spaces to there's a weekly check-in page. I kind of liked a previous version of this goal planner a little better in terms of the layout, because not every single week I'm going to need this box and this box and this line and a to-do list. But the main thing for me is the goal setup page and those action steps, because that's really what matters. You can write a goal down all day long, but if you don't have an action plan to actually follow through on that, you're kind of wasting your time. You might as well not even set it up. So I have quite a few personal goals. I may touch on those a little bit later on in this video. But for now, let's focus on finances, since that's what this channel is all about. So I'm going to start with where I want to be several years down the line and then kind of work my way back. So I would like to fully qualify to buy a house by the time I'm 39. So I have just over 4 years to get there. Now that doesn't mean that the week after I turn 39, I'm going to go buy a house. But I want to be ready and able to buy a house at that point in time. I don't want to be at the mercy of the rental market. And I also want a house that is my home, and I can make it my home in the way that I want. I'm not much of a homemaker, so it's not going to be some, Martha Stewart magazine cover type of home. But I still feel that it's very important for me to have that space for myself, something that is mine. And I have quite a ways to go if I seriously want to meet this goal. So for one thing, I have 2 car notes. That's a whole story. I do occasionally get into it in some other videos, but bottom line, I have 2 car notes. I do have some debt that I am kind of slowly cracking down on each paycheck. I have 3 credit cards. I want to get the credit card utilization a little bit lower and maintain that. It's not too high, but it's a little bit less than what they typically recommend, which I think is typically like 30% of your limit. So that's something I need to work on. Now, I did get a raise recently at my job, and it's kind of the amount that I want to be at, so I'm not unhappy with that. But I have some significant savings goals to make this happen. So I definitely want to be making about $15,000 more than what my base salary is. So quarterly bonuses will contribute to that, but I also need to find some type of side hustle that's going to bring in about that remaining $15,000. Which sounds like a lot, but over the course of a year, it's really not that much. I am working on getting this channel monetized. If I can't keep up with the consistency, that's not going to happen. So I have got to work a little harder at it and improve the content. I have a lot of ideas for this channel, and I need to stop falling behind. But even if that does happen, YouTube income is very much fluctuates, so it's not something to rely on too heavily. So I've got a lot of ideas to think about in terms of what I want to do in that regard. So I know what I want to tackle in terms of my debt. I know what I want to tackle in terms of my income. So the next thing for me is, what do I want to tackle in terms of what I want to have saved? So first of all, there's a down payment to figure out. I'm kind of trying to figure out what price range I might be looking at, which is kind of hard to think about, like 4 to 5 years down the road. But I have an idea of what price point I won't really be able to go past. So I need to start planning for that. I want $10,000 set aside in my savings. That is before closing costs, that is before moving expenses, that is before my down payment, all of it. So having that set aside before I even think about the rest of the house stuff, that's probably going to be the hardest part of this. So saving $10,000 for an emergency fund, and then saving for a down payment, and then any other expenses that will be related to buying a house, those are going to be the biggest challenges for sure. I don't think I'm going to have too much trouble bringing in extra income to meet those financial goals. I don't think I'm going to have a problem tackling my debt, but it's a lot to save. That is a lot to save within 4 years. It's no small thing. And that's not lost on me. This is actually a pretty hefty thing. And the thing is, I don't want to just barely qualify and barely have any savings. I don't want to get myself into a situation, if I go about doing this the wrong way, I'm just going to end up losing the house and being back in an apartment again, which is not what I want. So I'm going to have to figure out just how much I'm really willing to sacrifice to make this happen. So now I want to kind of work backwards to some of the other financial issues that I'm dealing with. So I already have a plan of action for my debt aside from the Nissan and the Jetta. I'm basically, I guess this is called the snowball method. I'm basically tackling the smaller amounts first and working my way up to the larger amounts. Because the first couple of things, honestly, I can probably pay out of a single paycheck. The rest of them, I would probably have to set up an actual payment plan. The debt I have, I can probably take care of, again, outside of the car notes, I can probably take care of within about a year and a half. So that's not a crazy amount of time, especially if you're looking at the long-term goal of being able to buy a house when I'm 39. The Jetta, I'm a little bit torn on because it's like, it is the lower interest rate, but I also don't feel right prioritizing it because it's not drivable. It has a blown engine. It's a situation. Now, when it comes to the car notes, I'm very much torn on which one I should prioritize. That's something that I need to deal with in terms of goals that I have not figured out at this point. So the Jetta is not running. It had to be replaced. That's basically how I ended up with 2 car notes. But here's where I'm kind of torn in terms of which one I should prioritize. Because I can't pay the full amount of each car note every single month. Unless I sacrifice, paying off my other debts and emergency fund, which obviously I don't want to do. I may cut back on the emergency fund to prioritize car notes, but I really don't want to do that too heavily. So the Jetta, I owe less on, but it's not a drivable vehicle. It has a lower interest rate, a lower car note. But that being said, if I am doing all these other things that I'm trying to take care of, I can't pay the full amount for both car notes. So basically I've been paying the Nissan every single month on usually within a couple days. And the Jetta, I've kind of just been making payments here and there as I can, which is fine, but as long as I'm behind, I'm adding interest to the loan, so that's a problem. But then the Nissan, because it's a larger amount and also is the vehicle I'm actually driving, kind of just feels like that should be the priority. I would rather keep paying like $100 a month, $150 a month to the Jetta, even though it's not really getting me caught up, and actually be paying extra towards the Nissan, so I can knock that out. So still a little bit torn on what to do about the car note situation. I am really leaning towards trying to pay the Nissan off first. I'm not sure it's entirely realistic that I can pay off both car notes before I am 39. So I'm not really trying to do that, but I do want to have at least one of them knocked out, and I would prefer it to be the Nissan just because that is the one that is actually on the road and needs to be maintained, etc. Plus the Nissan is $566 a month, so that having that amount available in my monthly income again would be amazing. Another financial goal I have is one I'm kind of struggling with, which is better vet care for my cats. So I've had cats before, and I'm going to be honest, they have not gotten the vet visits that they probably should have gotten. So I've really been trying to up my game, get them to the vet more frequently. One of them is an indoor-outdoor cat, so she definitely needs some. So due to that, they both need some extra vaccinations that they wouldn't need if they were both indoor. I'm trying to be better about maintaining pet insurance. There's a lot of things that I just feel like I could have done better for cats I've owned previously. So I'm really trying to kind of turn that around. But I will say financially, it's so easy to fall into that mindset of, well, I didn't get this cat this vaccine and nothing bad happened. Like that's such a silly way to think about it. And that just doesn't make sense. I don't know why I'm trying to make all these excuses. So I feel like when it comes to taking better care of the cats and doing more for them, it's like I'm telling myself that it's a financial burden and I shouldn't worry about it. And it's like, I know that's not the case. Like, it is the right thing to try to take better care of the cats that I have. But anytime I get into a pickle, if there's a vet visit I'm trying to pay for coming up, like that's like the first thing I want to cancel. So I think I just need to get a better picture of what the best financial care for them actually looks like. I have a 5-month-old cat and I also have a 2-year and 2-month cat. So I definitely need to have some goals that are related to what type of care they will need based on their age and what I can expect within the next couple of years. And lastly, and I know I've done a lot of complaining in this video, and I'm not always this negative of a person, I promise. But I have been struggling with some health issues as well, and I've been switching to an anti-inflammatory diet, and that has made my grocery budget go up. It's made my eating out budget go up because I'm I'm a bit of a stress eater, and constantly trying to make meals at home is just kind of starting to drive me a little bit crazy, and I'm trying to learn new recipes, and I'm not that good of a cook. Like, I've cooked in restaurants, but it is just different. It's different when you're trying to follow these weird recipes you find online in your own kitchen. I don't know what it is. But also I feel like the ingredients you get over the over the counter at grocery stores is just not the same thing as the ingredients restaurants have for whatever reason. And I've got to find a way to prioritize my health while also keeping that food budget in line. And a lot of the foods I'm trying to get, they're so much more expensive than what I was buying, which, don't get me wrong, I'm in a way happy that I'm buying real foods and healthier foods and cleaner foods than a bunch of processed crap, but the processed crap is cheaper. And it's easier to meet some of these other financial goals if I'm spending less money on food. Because the thing is, whenever you're struggling, one of the best things you can do for yourself is trying to minimize some of your expenses. And this was an area that for a while I was able to successfully minimize. And now that I'm making these changes, it's just going up and up. And I'm very frustrated with that situation. I will typically go to the grocery store every other week. Usually it's a day or two after I get paid. My budget for groceries was 55 per paycheck. Now it's 75 per paycheck. My eating out budget would be about $100 per paycheck. Now it's like 175 per paycheck. And that's too high too, but it's also just completely ruining my relationship with food. Like, all I'm thinking about is the next thing I'm going to eat, and whether or not it's something I have to feel guilty about. I hate it. I hate it. So hopefully, in addition to trying to come up with some financial goals to try to get that back in line, hopefully I can talk to a nutritionist or just someone to help me get on the right track with this, because like it's becoming this weird mental burden that it doesn't have to be. So that is what I'm dealing with, and those are my financial goals. Some of them are very specific, some of them are kind of broad and things I'm going to kind of be tweaking over the next couple of months. But I do have a pretty clear idea of what I want to do, where I want to be in the next several years, and hopefully in the next several years I will be posting videos giving you all positive updates, telling you I met these goals.